Hello there, Heather Yelland. How are you?
Hello, Alicia. I am very well, thank you. And thanks for helping me overcome the technical difficulties.
Oh, thank you for bearing with me as we all did it together. It's all good. Would you like to share with us who you are and who you work with and things like that, just so to give people a bit of context?
Sure. So I do a couple of things. I have two companies. One provides, that's the Elevation Company, providing consulting services to businesses, some large, Origin Energy, the Macquarie Group, those sorts of things, down to smaller ones, Vincent's Accounting, Forsyth's Financial, Kennedy's Law, those sorts of things. Basically in that business, the focus is on very much working with business people to bring out the best in their people. So we tend to work with organisations that are pretty clear about what they do and the difference that they make in the world, but perhaps could do more to draw forth the unique capacities in their own people, and build their engagement, and to do that particularly building around a values-based approach to leadership and engagement. The other company, which is Elevating Families, we basically provide children support, and support to everyone that supports children, in a sense. So children, families, school groups, community organisations, so forth. And most people would probably know that in that company we also run the reasonably popular Greens Supercamp Australia program.
Which is how we first met.
Which is how we first met and how I became acquainted with your beautiful children.
That's right. Well, in particular.
Yes,
rather
indeed.
Snotty, sad child.
Well, no, he was just overcome with homesickness. He was actually quite lovely because he talked a lot about, Heather, I just have to go home because I miss my family. And when I said, darling, but you realise all 100 children miss their families too. I understand that yours hurts you, but everybody else feels that way too. So you're not on your own. He said, nobody loves their children, their family as much as me. So there you go. Big shout out to the parents.
Love it. I love
that
it.
You had him convinced that was the case. But we do a whole heap of things, as you well know, Alicia, in Elevating Families. We run programs at schools and so forth. We run the Connection Zone, our parent-child events. We do work overseas. We run programs in Myanmar and New Zealand and Indonesia, and we support programs in Africa and India. So yeah, lots of things going on, but all of it awesome.
Absolutely fantastic. What was kind of the inspiration for you to start doing this kind of work?
Great question. A few things. I think I'm one of those people, perhaps a little like yourself, that it's just never going to work for me to work for somebody else. So I tried really, really hard in the early days of my career. And it became fairly evident reasonably quickly that was not going to be the path that I was to travel. And so I set up my own businesses. And I guess when I set out to do that, I'm pretty lucky in that I am one of the people who feels pretty clear about and connected to the difference that I was born to make. And so I basically went into, initially it was personal leadership activities, personal growth, those sorts of things, and then morphed into relationship work, which was great. Loved both of those things, but I was having a bit of a crisis there at one stage. Went to a conference in Bali, and one of my mentors, whom I caught up with after that program, said, I was just talking about feeling a bit blah about what I was doing. And he said, well, what do you love? And I said, I love kids. And he said, well, why don't you do something with children? And we had been investigating the possibility of bringing Supercamp, which is an American-based program, to Australia. But I hadn't really done anything with it because I wasn't too sure how to do all of that and who to connect with and so forth. And he talked about the fact that he was wanting to do that at the Greens School in Bali. So I said, well, let's buddy up and do this together. So I brought it to Australia, and then the following year we started it in Indonesia and ran it from the Green School. for some time. And I think that was probably a fairly key turning point for me, because I realized that you could not only provide wonderful programs and services to children, but you could do that in a way that really transformed the family context as well. And you could do that in a way that created really positive and sustained change. And I mean, you know, I'm a business person. So the other thing, of course, is that I needed to make sure that I could do it without it costing me an arm and a leg, which indeed it did, has done over time. But hopefully by the time we've been running it for 10 years, it will have paid me back all of that. Nice. And we've been running it in Australia now for 8 years. I think probably the other influencing factor from my perspective, Alicia, is that, and you may well know this story, that I spent a fair bit of my childhood and growing up years having this insatiable curiosity about the human condition. And one of the consequences of that was that I developed a framework for human change. And I was working a lot with adults, and I love that work and still do, absolutely love that work. But then I thought, gosh, how different would the trajectory of our lives be if we knew all of this stuff when we were children? Yeah. And I think that was a big defining moment for me as well. The why behind was that I wanted young people to have a really solid and steady understanding of who they are and the uniqueness that they bring to the world, so that they could use that as the foundation on which they build their lives.
Pretty spectacular.
That's what I did.
And as somebody who has had the absolute blessing of having opportunity to access that on so many levels in our family life, in our business life, in a personal perspective, I love seeing that although the way you interact with the kids is child specific, there may not be some of the same antics that go on in the consultation rooms, but fundamentally it's the same. It is teaching them how to show up in their own hearts and how to live the difference they were born to make, whether they're 9 or whether they've been in business for 50 years. There is no difference. And that's something that I love about you, is the way that you show up everywhere. Like, how we do one thing is how we do everything. And that
absolutely
do everything with excellence and with that same passion and bravado is fabulous.
Yeah. And I think, you know, as I spent the day yesterday in I'm part of a leadership development forum for leaders from charity, partnered with leaders from business. It's called the Growth Project. And I spent the day yesterday with 25 of those people, a new cohort coming through in Melbourne. And we had to do it virtually, which felt a little bit odd, but I was talking with them about the fact that everything that we do in both companies is built on a foundational belief, and that belief is that all any of us really want is to love and be loved, and to be known, loved, seen, heard, and got for who we truly are. And so, you know, I talk about that stuff whether I'm at the Macquarie Bank just as much as I do when I'm working with parents or children or those sorts of things. And I guess that's one of the great joys of being me, is because I do know what the difference is that I want to make in the world. I can be me no matter what the forum. And I was talking yesterday about, in the old world, you had a 9 to 5 self and a completely different 5 to 9 self. But I think that we're now in an age and an era where we understand that who we are as people, who we be, is so much more powerful and so much finding success than what we do. And so really we're a 24-hour person, and we want the things that we do for work and the investment we make in the world to leave our legacy to reflect who we are at a heart level. Not everyone's ready to have that conversation, but it's a very good thing to do at the beginning of an engagement with even with a consulting client, because if they're not ready to invest genuinely in that, then we're not the ones for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Simple formula.
What do you think stops people from stepping into that or having that curiosity of where that they could be going?
In really simple terms, fear. But to elaborate on that a little bit more, fear of their own vulnerability. We're a strange collection of people. In fact, yesterday when I was speaking, I was, by way of giving an example about the importance of understanding your values, I was telling the story of my dad, as you know, had an accident, and even though he was a big, strong farmer, fell down some stairs and broke his neck in 4 places. And we had to make a decision about whether or not we turn off the life support. And it was a really simple decision when you compare the circumstances to his values. And I was talking about that and I got teary, and some of the people on the call said, oh, I wish I was there. I'd love to be able to give you a hug right now. And it made me think it's funny, isn't it? Because we're really good at being there for other people. We're really good at being there to support and nurture and encourage other people. But when we grieve, or when we're struggling, or when we're having a hard time or feeling overwhelmed or challenged, what we do is we retreat, we withdraw. We actually make it impossible for the people around us who love us and want to support and uplift us to give us what we want. The human experience is wired for connection and belonging. But when we struggle, we're so worried about our vulnerability that we actually disconnect and don't want to belong, and we stop people having the privilege of the experience of supporting us, even though we're first to be out there supporting everybody else. And I think there's something there for us to really think about. If we were all out and proud about our vulnerabilities, and even our struggle with our vulnerabilities, then we probably wouldn't feel so inclined to have to withdraw or retreat or whatever it is that we do that gets in the way of us having that lovely, deep human connection.
I'm looking around my desk because I've got some Heather Yelland specific articles and gifts. Would you like to actually, I couldn't find a normal one. I've only got the world's biggest one and some love passes. With your fabulous creative style of how you teach, would you like to kind of continue on that track?
Continue
Problem tube, as we may call it in this particular episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really
so basically, the challenge with the problem tube is that we all get caught in a cycle of just running, busy. And it's interesting because lots of people have said, oh, during this whole COVID lockdown thing, I should have a whole lot more time. Well, I don't necessarily feel like I've got a whole lot more time. In fact, there's a whole lot less time in some ways. I'm just doing a whole lot less travel, and I love that. But we are people who, I think as a human race, we are inclined to fill our hours and our days with activity, certainly in the West, much more than with peace and breathing and reflection. In fact, I was really loving I can't remember, it was a few days ago now, but someone else that was interviewed talking about breathing in the collective inspired humans. And I really like that, to bring a completely different consciousness and presence to something that is an everyday activity, but to do it with a great deal more grace and elegance, I think is just so powerful. And so I've kind of been exploring this notion from a different perspective, but let's just assume we're in pre-COVID life. The problem tube is the result of us just getting on the treadmill. Same stuff, different day, same stuff, different day. And we just get into action, motivation. The more the motivation, the more the action. We just kind of get on the treadmill and run. And often what that does is it means we're sort of looking at life down a tube of same stuff, different day. And when we're looking at life down a tube, we only see what's at the end of the tube. And for the most part, we tend to angle that tube towards the problems, the struggles, the challenges, or the to-do list. And so when we're looking down that tube, we can't see the myriad of opportunities and possibilities and other wonderful things that are all around us, but to which we've become blind because of the consuming and foveal nature of looking down the problem tube. So the idea is to open that up. Are there problems in our lives? Of course. Yeah, you're
Trying
going
to
to have
open it up
trouble ripping
quickly,
that one, I think.
and it's not going to work. Quickly, get my scissors.
So we normally use the center of a toilet roll, and we call it the shit tube. And you know, that is what happens. We look down the tube for long enough that we can only see the problems and the struggles and the challenges, and we forget that there's all of these other wonderful things around us. It's a little bit like, you may not be old enough to remember, Alicia, but there's a movie called Sliding Doors.
Yes. Yep. Love that.
Something like that. And it sort of talks about, if I went this way, I'd have this life, but if I went that way, I'd have this life. And it just reminds us that, you know, that there's not so much a parallel universe, but another universe all around us that we're not opening ourselves up to, because we're so focused on seeing only the things at the end of our tube.
Yeah.
So that's a good reminder to people to peel their eyes and look at things with fresh vision.
Which is why
the
you
love
have
glasses.
Beautiful.
Yes, that's the children's version of it. So for the young people, we talk about, you can either put on your problem glasses or you can put on your love glasses. And it's just a way of helping children understand that the color of their lens shades their view. So if you've got your problem glasses on and I've got my love glasses on, I'll be saying, oh my God, look, it's a beautiful day here. It's raining and it's gorgeous, and I love the smell of fresh rain. And you'll have your problem glasses on and going, oh, I hate this. It's a miserable day and I can't even go outside. We're looking at exactly the same thing, but we're looking at it through fundamentally different lenses. Yeah. I think I'm famous for the old love glasses thing. I'm not sure how that happened.
I just love how there's so many photos and selfies and things with people from Supercamp or the Paraview or any event where there's just like love glasses everywhere. It's awesome. It's fabulous. So
yeah,
what's the opposite side of the vortex, as I know that you call it, with the kind of getting on the tube and running on the treadmill? What's the kind of opposite side of that thing?
Well, the other end of the continuum, if you like, is that one of the problems we have in the West is that we're very, very fixed on asking how. As soon as there's a problem, we need to solve it. There's no sitting with the problem. There's no reflecting on the problem. There's no here's a problem, here's a solution. The faster we can come up with a solution, the better we feel about ourselves. And yet all it really does is mean that we reproduce the same stuff that we've previously been doing. As Einstein said, you can't solve a problem at the same level of thinking at which you created it. And the subtext for me on that is, or the next sentence is, without continuing to reproduce the same problem. So we actually have to shift our thinking. We have to elevate our thinking to a whole new level in order to better understand a new way of going forward. So the problem comes up, we ask ourselves how to fix it. And the difficulty is that anytime you ask a how question, all that happens is that you amplify the energy behind the question. So if you've got a problem and you're feeling scared or overwhelmed or fearful or some sense of scarcity or deprivation or lack or struggle, asking how just gives you more of that, which kind of defeats the purpose. It's like taking a shovel and digging yourself in. So at the other end of the continuum, instead of asking how, you ask why. And I noticed that you called this session The Power of Why. The importance of understanding your why, the why behind what you do. I guess that when you ask why, it tends to elevate your eyes. And, you know, when we think about expansion and growth and infinite possibilities, we look up. We think about the universe, the grand organizing design, whatever it is that's out there that's bigger than all of us. And that makes us incline our vision. In fact, people like me used to be dragging organisations out on retreat 5 or 10 years ago and doing blue sky thinking sessions. So, you know, we know that infinite possibility is up there. When we look up there, what we receive is inspiration. And the more we're inspired, the more we get into attraction. The more we're in attraction, the more we get into inspiration. Inspiration, attraction, attraction, inspiration. That's the flow. That's where everything happens in a way that has ease and elegance and grace and simplicity. And that's where we want to live, ideally.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, we've all got those friends that are really lucky. You know, those lucky friends. Everything good comes to them. They get great jobs. They get great opportunities. They've got great friends. They have great family, you know, that sort of thing. And we describe them as lucky. And maybe they are. But in my books, they actually create their own luck. I am one of those people. I am absolutely one of those people. But I work in a really focused and intentional way to create that luck. And I'm sure that when I'm really clear with the universe what my intention is, and it's an inspired intention, and I've really listened to my inner voice on that, the universe conspires to help me achieve what matters to me, as well as to the universe. When I'm busy just getting on with it and being really busy, and, you know, it's the kind of work harder versus work smarter. And I think when we're in flow and we understand the why behind things and why things are important to us and for us, we're much more in flow, and we're much more inclined to work smarter than harder.
That's such a, I mean, I've heard that framework time and time again, and I adore it. And every time I feel like I can just suck more out of it to just, it's so important because it's so easy to go back to that absolutely. How. And I know now from listening, when I hear that coming out, it's like, hang on, just check in why. And I think of my kids, but why? And it's like, why? I love that childlike curiosity, because that is where the inspiration comes from.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, Mum, I want to make cupcakes. Darling, we haven't been shopping and there's no money in the account and blah, 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 blah. And they're just like, I don't give two rips. Can we make cupcakes? Like, they're not thinking about you and how. They're just looking at, but why? It'd be fun and I've got time and I want cupcakes.
Absolutely.
It's a really good reminder to go back to, well, you know, why? Why is this? Why do I need to change? You know, or why would I like to change? What's the opportunities for me if I do? What other possibilities could I create because of that? And as soon as you start to do that, you instantly elevate your thinking and open up the possibilities.
Yeah, and look, I think as hard as COVID has been, in terms of obviously the biggest cost being the deaths, as well as the financial constraints that it's caused a lot of people. But what it has actually caused us all to do is to stop and pause and reflect. It really is, as I was saying to someone yesterday, it really is as if the universe said, I want you to go to your room and really think about what you've done. And so we have time to really pause and sit back and reflect on what matters in a completely different way. We're off the treadmill. We had to get off the treadmill. Well, most of us are off the treadmill. We had to get off the treadmill. And so now is the time to really re-engineer the way we want to live our lives. Now's the time to be a co-author or a co-architect of a new way of living and a new way of being. And I think now is a wonderful time to really draw on the power of why and understand, why do we live our lives the way that we do? Why does that actually matter? Why do we put so much emphasis on money, 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 money? You know, possessions, you know, the get, instead of the contribution. I think that one of the lovely things that's come out of this COVID crisis is that redirecting our focus back to kindness and generosity and support and nurture and love and all of those sorts of things. And I understand the context as to how it came to be that we're in the situation that we're in, but clearly we can't keep living the way that we've been living. So now's an opportunity for each and every one of us to pause and reflect and wonder, to search for that inner why and that inner inspiration, and really go forward in a way that creates something wonderful and unique and different.
Yeah, I love that. Heather, thank you so much for your time today in sharing. It has been just sensational to have this conversation here. I know that when people watch this, when we eventually get it up onto the technology platform that it's meant to be out and it's all on that, people will really feel inspired. And I always love the way that you elevate everything in your own life through your own vulnerability and your own creativity. And I just really want to thank you so much for hanging out with me today and coming to play.
You're very welcome, and I hope it's helpful for people. And thank you too, because I think that the collectively inspired humans is just, it's a wonderful concept at a time where people could easily get caught into feeling sorry for themselves. So I really love what you're doing to elevate the human spirit as well. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
Pleasure. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.